Welcome to this webinar, Tips for Going Green and Tips to Become Socially Responsible Exporter in the Natural Food Additive sector. We're waiting for some more of our registrations to join us, and during this time I'll already start with some house rules. So we cannot hear or see you. So there's on the right of your screen, there's a menu, and you have a questions tab. You can ask your questions there, and we will answer a selection of questions. During this webinar, we have two question rounds where we will answer your questions. There will be a recording of the session, and that will be published on our website, so you can review it and share it with others. At the end of the webinar, you will receive a short survey about this webinar. We will appreciate it if you answer these questions so we can learn from it. If you have audio problems, try phone call. Okay. The agenda for today. I will do an opening and introduction of CBI, tell you something about our organization, and then Casper Kerver of Profound Advisors in Development will start with his presentation about tips to go green, and then we have a short question round about that part of the presentation. Then Casper will continue with tips to become a socially responsible exporter. And in the last 20 minutes, we have an interview with Lastiana Yuliandari. She's the founder of Allied Green in Indonesia. And we close with another round of questions. So please, you can ask your questions anytime. You can put your questions in the question tab anytime. And we will try to answer most of them in these two question rounds. CBI is a Center for the Promotion of Imports from Developing Countries. Our mission is to support the transition towards inclusive and sustainable economies. We strengthen the social, economic and environmental sustainability of small medium enterprises in developing countries, mostly by connecting them to European and regional markets. With that work, we promote and create decent jobs, and we pay special attention to women and youth. And we support or stimulate sustainable trade and production. Our emphasis is on countries in West Africa, the Sahel region, East Africa, and specific Asian countries. We're active in 13 sectors at the moment. Of course, today it's mostly about natural food additives. But here you see the other sectors we're active in. CBI has two main pillars, and that's the CBI projects. And in the CBI project, we work on long-term sector development from the perspective of a locally shared vision. We make use of local knowledge, but also of European experts. In our CBI projects is a 4-year expert coaching program with individual training, coaching, and market entry activities like visiting and on this European trade fairs. Please visit our website to learn more about our projects. In our project, we work with all kinds of institutions and organizations, from governments, NGOs, importers, international buyers, producers, and business service organizations. And then the second very important pillar of CBI is the market information. We make market information available for small medium enterprises in developing countries. And we focus on export to Europe of products and services in these 13 sectors I just mentioned. All our market information is for free and available via our website. please visit our website, cbi.eu/market information, to see what kind of market information we have. Also, the studies, the subject, that's for the presentation of today, tips to go green and tips to become a socially responsible exporter. These studies will be published on our website in about 6 to 8 weeks. We will let you know when it is, and you can subscribe on our market information newsletter, so you learn when the studies are published. Okay, I will now give the floor to Casper, who will continue his presentation.
Thank you, Thomas. All right. You just confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Okay, yeah, so my name is Casper Kerver, and sorry, I just had an issue with my screen. All right, I work at a company, Profound Advisors in Development in the Netherlands. I've been working on international trade promotion from developing countries to Europe for quite a long time, more than 15 years. Especially looking at the market, so talking to let's say buyers and stakeholders here in the market, but also working on projects in developing countries. So I also have an understanding, of course, of the challenges in the field, in the supply chain. And for me, the most interesting challenge is always to translate what I see in the market opportunities to recommendations that you as exporters can work with. My product expertise is on natural ingredients. Today we talk about really natural ingredients for food and especially food additives. But we also work a lot on other ingredients for cosmetics and health products. But yeah, today is on food additives. And just for your understanding, because I think you're working with different types of ingredients, the main subgroups here are hydrocolloids, such as seaweed extracts and gums, sweeteners, such as coconut sugar and alternative sweeteners, and let's say flavor ingredients such as essential oils and extracts. Our mission at Profound is closely linked to CBI's mission. We aim to generate local income through sustainable sourcing and by linking producers to buyers here in the European market. And for that, we have 3 types of services. So we do a lot of market analysis to identify opportunities. That's what I will also be sharing with you today. We also work on compliance to support companies through training and coaching to meet buyer expectations. And then obviously, we also help to link buyers and suppliers. As Thomas said, today's presentation is divided in 2 main parts. The first one is on, let's say, environmental sustainability, which we also call going green. So tips to go green, and later the second half will be more on social responsibility, so socially responsible business. First, I would like to share with you the latest developments on a legislative level by the EU. The EU is working on the Green Deal, and the Green Deal is it's mainly a strategy, and it's now also being implemented. So they're developing different directives and regulations to achieve the targets in the Green Deal. And on the right side, you can see some of the targets. They relate to really climate, sustainable transport, green industry, pollution, also the financing of green projects. From farm to fork, that's actually the most important one for a lot of agricultural value chains in which you are active. And then there's a lot of policies and regulations that only affect European companies within Europe. The aim of the Green Deal is to restore ecosystems and biodiversity and to achieve zero pollution of the environment and implement concept of circular economy. And I will address some of these concepts during the presentation. Recently, two very relevant pieces of legislation have been accepted by the European Commission, relevant for you and relevant for also importers in Europe. There's always two perspectives. There's a perspective of importers and there's the perspective of exporters. Now, for importers, for large importers, they are going to have to work on their due diligence because of the corporate sustainability due diligence proposal that is now under development by the EU. It means that these large companies will be required to identify and where necessary prevent and or mitigate adverse impacts along their supply chains on human rights and on the environment. So the European Union is making companies more responsible for what happens in their supply chains, which can be outside Europe. The other piece of legislation that has recently been published is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. And that will require large European companies to disclose sustainability issues through third-party audited reports describing how issues related to sustainability affect their business and how their business affects people and the environment. So these large companies not only have to know what is going on in their supply chains, they also have to disclose information through reporting. For now, this applies just to large companies like so many millions of turnover and so many hundreds of employees to be that it's mandatory to do this. But in the future, we can expect that this will also apply to smaller importers. And depending on which type of companies you're dealing with, large companies in Europe or small companies in Europe, this may mean that you already need to help these companies comply with this legislation, or very soon, let's say in the next 5 years, you will have to comply. But this is going to be really affecting not only European companies, but all companies in their supply chains, including you as exporters. Now, what does it mean for you? That's, of course, your big question. Because in the end, the responsibility is obviously with European importers, but as happens with a lot of legislation, they're going to sort of outsource the responsibility to their suppliers, which is you. And practically, it means first that they will need more detailed information on sustainability issues in your supply chains and how those issues are being addressed. And so that means, first of all, information provision to European buyers will become your responsibility. Now, so that's the Green Deal and the legislation. And then the question is, of course, yeah, how to go green, and what do European buyers expect in terms of going green? What do they find important? And yeah, what can you then do with that? In this presentation, we have sort of divided the several measures for going green into these 4 categories, which follow the value chain sequence. So there's measures you can take on production level, on processing level, on packaging, and on transport or logistics. So leading European companies, leading in terms of sustainability, they see a need for urgent action to promote sustainability. Yeah, and sustainability also means biodiversity conservation. But yeah, to do anything about it, they need information from supply chains, from people in the field, and often they don't have the people in the field, they have suppliers in the field. So they lack information to see what are the issues in the field and what is feasible to do in terms of measures to address sustainability issues. And you, yeah, as exporters can play a key role to promote sustainable production with your producers in your supply chains. So what can you do? Well, first is always awareness about environmental and social issues in your chains. You can discuss that with buyers because they will appreciate it when you are aware even of issues as a start. You can be proactive in also identifying issues in the chain and then share also challenges to address sustainability issues with your European buyers. And yeah, central to all of this is that you commit to a long-term relationship with producers. I'll explain a bit more about that. But there are several benefits to having long-term relationships with producers. So this is as opposed to just buying every season from whatever supplier is available with stock. But really building relationship. Benefits are that you can get a competitive advantage over your competition. You can create your own story about going green. You get improved quality control options. Often it translates to faster delivery times and cost savings. And you get flexibility for adaptive management. Okay, so European buyers, they will be requesting more detailed information from actors involved in their supply chains. And that means you must have information on risks, environmental risks, social risks, and the impact that you have with your sourcing on the environment and on the people in the supply chain. And yeah, to get information from your supply chains, you also need to have a traceability system. Now, traceability has always been very crucial for exports to European Union because of food safety. But that same traceability system is also, like, say, your fundament for creating more transparency in your supply chain about social issues and environmental issues. An example of certification standards from the the Marine Stewardship Council They have chain of custody certification, which gives assurance that seaweed products that bear their label can be traced to a sustainable and socially responsible source. And yeah, so traceability, you can have your own traceability system without certification, but if you can get it certified, you also have something to show to buyers. All right, then another measure that you can take for going green is to become nature positive. In the European legislation, the idea is first of all to decrease the negative impact on the environment, but ideally we get a positive impact on the environment through the farming and collection of raw materials. So people having a positive impact. One way to do that is to apply regenerative farming. This is still a niche. There's very few companies that are doing this, but we can see a very large interest in regenerative farming, which builds on the principles of organic farming. Concepts like regenerative farming and nature positive production, they refer to halting and reversing biodiversity loss, increasing biomass, reducing the use of fossil fuels. And the idea is that by working closely with your producers, you can create nature positive impact on which you can also report to your buyers and so use it as a marketing tool. And so there's an example of some positive promotional features for coconut sugar. Later during this webinar, we will also hear from a coconut sugar producer in Indonesia. So hear a bit more about what they're doing to create positive impact. Okay, still a very important tool to show that you're going green, that you're taking measures to have a more positive impact on the environment is certification. And I provided some examples. So the EU organic standard is very important and is still gaining ground in Europe and is also being supported by the EU Green Deal. So in the next, let's say, 10 years, we really expect the market share of organic to continue to grow. But we also see new standards coming up, like the Regenerative Organic Certified. Rainforest Alliance is very important in certain sectors, and also UEBT is gaining ground slowly. So how you go green really depends on your subsector and on what your buyers find important, or what the buyers in your subsector find important, and what is important in your supply chain. So it differs, of course, on your situation. Depends on your situation what measures you have to take. But it's always good to learn from your peers. One of them might be Big Tree Farms in Indonesia. And this is what they write on their website. And I've underlined the part: by using regenerative farming to harvest nira, which is coconut blossom sugar, we restore soils, stay true to ancient practices, and protect our natural resources. This company has chosen regenerative farming to have a positive impact on the environment, and is also putting emphasis on the restoration of soils, healthy soils. Another example for going green is this one from the company Treat. That's a European company. And they put a strong emphasis on circular economy, which is a concept that refers to minimizing waste and maximizing resource utilization. And as you can see in the figure on the right, is they try to use every part of the oranges that are grown by their suppliers. This company is mostly interested in the let's say the derivatives of oranges, so the oil and the terpenes and fractions, where the fresh fruit will actually go to fresh fruit markets. But yeah, they try to use everything and not throw anything away, and that's central to the circular economy. They also apply upcycling, which is a very trendy term in Europe, and that refers to the creation of new high-value products from waste material. So adding value to waste. The International Flavors Fragrance Company also upcycles ingredients, and they have been working for a long time in turmeric, and now they have developed technology to also use the leaves from turmeric plants, which were previously considered waste. But they found out that actually you can get a very nice scented essential oil from the leaves, which has a very high value. So it makes business sense, like you can get money from it, but it's also good for the environment and something that you can then promote. On packaging, European Union is working on legislation to really reduce packaging, and some countries have already taken a lead, with, I believe, Spain being the country that has taken the most concrete step. They introduced an import tax on non-recycled plastic packaging of 45 euro cents per kilogram. And it means a lot of administration for importers and additional costs. So we are also hearing from importers in Spain that they are really urging their suppliers to not supply anything in plastic packaging anymore. And yeah, so countries like Italy and the UK have implemented similar laws. So in general, very important to try and reduce the use of plastics, especially for packaging that is used for your ingredients that you supply to Europe, but also the packaging used maybe by in your supply chains, in your own supply chains. So you can look for alternative packaging materials, or find ways to reuse or recycle packaging that is used in your supply chains. And for example, we also see companies that are collecting packaging that is used in their supply chains, and then have a partnership with a company that can recycle or reuse that packaging. All right, I will now ask Faramia of CBI to launch a poll. So that's a question that you can answer, and you can provide multiple answers. And it's a poll, yeah, on greening options, just to see, yeah, which kind of measures for greening your business are popular amongst you. All right, poll is open. So the question is, which measures in your supply chains have you or your supplier already taken to green your business? And it should be possible to select multiple answers. And this is obviously a non-exhaustive list. These are just some examples of what you can do to green your business. And I'm quite interested to see what are sort of the popular measures. All right. I see about 50% of the audience has voted. Still some answers coming in. And with these polls, it's also always a bit risky how you formulate things. First option, for example, is on traceability of products to specific farm locations. Yeah, so what I put there is specific farm locations, because often I see that traceability systems are in place, but they go back maybe to a cooperative or a group of farmers, and not to specific farms. And that makes quite a difference. The idea is really to go back to specific farms, so geographically speaking, with borders, because also the sustainability issues are always related to specific farms. They may be different from one farm to the other, especially if they are in very different regions. All right, I think we can publish the results. Oh. All right, so I'm not sure which screen you are now seeing, but just to summarize the results, which I can see from the poll.
Yes, we are seeing the results slide.
All right, okay, good. So the number one is traceability. So I'm curious to what extent traceability, but yeah, that has been a very crucial requirement in the European market for a very long time, and is only becoming more important. And the traceability system will have to be expanded with more information, not just like a batch code on a bag, but it will have to come with more information on how the product has been produced and the impact that it had on the environment. The second most popular answer is to reduce the plastic packaging, closely followed by reducing, reusing, or recycling waste. Okay, that's quite a high percentage. Then conserving biodiversity, also still 42%. And let's say the least popular measure right now with this audience is reducing the use of fossil energy, 27%. Yeah. All right. I think for European companies, that one on reducing fossil energy, fossil fuels, will be much higher, with a lot of companies now, electrifying their business processes and transport, etc. Okay, great. Then I'm going to share my screen again. Right. And then there is some room for questions on the first part, on going green. So on the environmental impact that you have as a business. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't see any questions yet in the
there are some questions,
GoToWebinar.
There are some questions. I will read them.
Okay.
first question is from Martin, and it's about what you talked in the beginning about the legislation for large companies, the CSRD, if I'm not mistaken. It says also small companies need to comply is the expectation.
The expectation.
When will this be clear? When it will be applicable for small medium enterprises?
Yeah. Very good question. So the European Union has decided to first make it mandatory for bigger companies, which have the means, the resources to basically implement these measures, because it requires quite a bit of organization to collect data through your supply chain and then report on it. So it is an administrative burden also for importers, and it will be also an administrative burden for exporters. And I think what we will need to see in the coming years, how these larger companies are dealing with it and how successful they are, and if that is satisfactory for the European Union. I think if it becomes clear that even for the very large companies, it's too much of a burden and it becomes like a serious barrier to trade, then I won't expect the European Union to very soon, in the next couple of years, say, okay, now also small companies need to do all of this work. Yeah, my own expectation is that because I'm already reading sustainability reports by large companies with a lot of information in there. Definitely a lot of large companies are successfully collecting information and disclosing it. And then, the European Union is very big and it is very bureaucratic and things go very slow. So I don't expect smaller companies in the next, I don't know, 5 years to must provide this same information, but there's a difference between legal developments, which take very long, and initiatives which are voluntary, which are initiated by European buyers, that will also affect US exporters. And I think smaller importers in Europe within the next 5 years will start copying what larger companies are doing on a voluntary basis. So you will get more questions on your sustainability measures on going green within the next 5 years, but not mandatory, not by legislation.
Okay, thank you.
Are there more questions?
Was a clear answer. Yeah, there are now coming in a lot of questions. I don't think we can answer them all in this first question round.
All right.
But a second question which came in from Carlito. It's how do exporter companies have their own traceability systems without certification? Is that question clear to you?
How do exporter companies have a traceability system without certification?
Have their own traceability system without certification.
Okay, yeah. So
can you set up your own traceability system, or?
Yeah, you can always set up your own traceability system. In fact, for even food safety management purposes, you don't need to have your traceability system certified by a third party. Traceability is part of HACCP, which is Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points. Those are principles for food safety management. You are required to have a HACCP system in place, so to have a food safety management system, including traceability, in place, but it does not have to be certified, legally speaking. Of course, there are individual buyers in Europe which do require a certification, but it's specific to those buyers. And they may require, for example, the FSSC 22000 or BRC certificate as proof that you have a traceability system and complete food safety management system in place.
Okay, thank you. We'll do another question, and this is also about the funding support of small companies. Going green and being responsible requires funding support that small companies may not have. How can we access these funding for sustainability activities?
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree that these requirements regarding sustainability put a certain burden on you, and so it requires resources and also financial resources. And so you would expect European Union, if they come with requirements, that there's also funds available. Now they do to some extent, but the way it works is mostly that they make funding available for European companies to work on their supply chains, on sustainability issues in their supply chains, right? So it comes, let's say, from the EU and from other donors to European companies to, let's say, US suppliers and the people working in the supply chain. And so if you are an exporter, then yeah, you can look at your buyer to see if they can access those funds, or you can often organize yourself as a sector to access funds more directly. So there's also donors that don't necessarily work with European buyers, but they go directly to suppliers in the field. But for that, you often have to be organized as a group of companies. And then it depends on the country where you are and the sector and the sustainability issues that you're facing, if you can get access to that funding.
Okay, thank you, Casper. It's already 14 minutes past 11, so let's get to the next part of your presentation.
All right. Okay. Can you just confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Next part is on yeah, socially responsible business. And we talk about corporate social responsibility, which refers to a company's commitment to conduct business in an ethically and socially responsible manner, taking into consideration the impact of its activities on various stakeholders. So including your employees, but also customers, communities that you work with, and the environment. So CSR is becoming an important topic on the agenda of European buyers, and that's partly because of the due diligence legislation of the EU. There's also companies that are, let's say, leaders in terms of sustainability and that are initiating it on their own. So yeah, different priority given to this topic by different European companies. But if you look at the company Rémy Cointreau, which is in the beverages market, they state, we believe that we must set an example for our value chain that embodies our responsible sourcing and sustainability values. Policies must be in place that protect workers' rights. So just to give you an example of how a big European company defines importance of CSR for their business. Then for you, the question is, of course, yeah, what do you need to do And what are the standards, social standards, that European companies are expecting? Now, I will go into some of the aspects of CSR that are important in Europe. So, so we get back to traceability again. That's also important for the environmental management, or management of environmental impact, and equally important for your social impact, so that you're able to trace products back, but not just with the batch code, but also with additional information on, for example, who has produced it and under what working conditions. But all of this begins for you with engaging producers of your ingredients to identify their problems. So yeah, you need to have your ears open to both sides of the value chain. Of course, you need to listen to concerns of buyers regarding social impact, what they find important. At the same time, you also need to listen to your suppliers in the field and what their problems are. If you are proactive in that and you identify issues and ideally also solutions, and you show that to buyers, that's really an important USP, unique selling point. It will help you to convince buyers that you're a socially responsible business, and that makes you stand out from the competition. Now you can organize roundtable sessions with producers to talk about issues. You can also ask producers to fill out a self-assessment to measure their farm sustainability and to assess social performance of their operations. And there's different self-assessment tools available. One is from the SAI. Another one is from Amfori, which is from like a fair trade organization. And with the results of those self-assessments, you can then like evaluate within your supply chain what are main issues, and then you can discuss that with your international buyers and identify priority issues to address. Okay, obviously one important aspect of CSR is a fair compensation for the producers in your value chains and your own employees. And yeah, as an employer committed to social equity, you must ensure your producers are paid a living wage. Yeah, it goes a bit too far to explain what a living wage is, but there's also tools available, for example, from the organization IDH, Initiative for Sustainable Trade, another Dutch organization, to calculate the living wage for your producers. And yeah, we see that European companies that are taking a lead in sustainable market transformation are asking for information on prices that you pay for raw materials and cost of production. And that's, you know, it's kind of sensitive information. But if you are transparent about it, then they may also get a better understanding of the price breakdown of your ingredients, and they may support you in taking sustainability measures. And in some cases, they also pay better prices. It's important to document pricing arrangements across your supply chain. So to be open also towards your suppliers on how prices are calculated, what is realistic. For certain European companies, it's important to work on equality between genders, and they want to see that the women's role in production and harvesting of ingredients are compensated fairly. And if you are a socially responsible exporter with a supply chain in which there are inequality issues, it's important to visit communities, understand power dynamics, and and work on equity. And just to explain, equity involves providing additional support to those who may need it more as a mechanism to leveling the playing field, whereas equality means treating everyone the same. And so those are two different concepts. And the focus in Europe is more on creating equity. Same as for going green, to become more socially responsible, you can also, of course, implement international standards and get certified, and that certificates you can then use as proof that you're taking measures, and that always helps to convince buyers of your measures. And I've given a few examples here. There's SMITA, which is linked to the CEDEX platform. That's the Supplier Ethical Data Exchange, which I will also ask about to Lastiana of Elliott Green during the interview. There's obviously fair trade that has been in the market for a very long time. That's by Fair Trade International. There's also Fair for Life by EcoCert, which is very similar. And for wild collected ingredients, there is the Fair Wild standard. That may also be relevant if you're working with wild collected ingredients. Another issue of concern in certain supply chains is land use rights. And it's important for the economic sustainability, but also the social responsibility of your business, that you work on ensuring long-term land use rights by your producers. Because if you do not do this, producers may lose rights to land, and then you may lose access to raw materials. But obviously, when they lose rights to land, that has a huge impact on their lives. So if you claim to be making a social impact, positive social impact, then taking initiative and supporting producers with their land use rights is crucial, and something you can definitely report on to buyers to show your socially responsible business practices. Yeah, so finally, if you implement CSR measures, and that's, it takes quite a lot of resources, and obviously with a good intent, but you also want to gain something from it in terms of buyer recognition and getting better access to buyers. And for that, it's crucial that you document your CSR measures. And that means collecting data from producers in your supply chain, and then organizing the data, analyzing the data, documenting also then the measures that you take, and documenting in the end the impact that you're making. And especially that one, if you can show to buyers that you're making a positive impact, that is going to mean more and more to European buyers. So that's gonna be really appreciated by buyers as a unique selling point, and yeah, as in the far future, even as a license to operate, right? That you must be making well, you must limit at least your negative impact and ideally make positive impact to be doing business in Europe.
Casper, it's
Yeah.
almost time to start the interview, I think, with Lastiana. So
yeah, it's right on time, because
okay,
I have
great.
2 more questions for the audience that Faramia will share with you so that you can answer. The first question is, which measures in your supply chains have you or your supplier already taken to make your business socially responsible? So it's the same setup as the question for going green, but then related to socially responsible business. Yeah, I see also the answers coming in now. About 20% has voted. I think some of these are very self-explanatory, but contracts with suppliers, including both partners' responsibilities. That means that you have contracts with, in most cases, farmers, in which you define the relationship between the two, with also responsibilities, for example, on applying practices that you have trained them on quality specifications that they must meet, maybe even using the packaging materials that you provide to them, and ideally also a little bit of information on the pricing mechanism where, for example, you can pay an incentive, an extra for higher grades of products, better quality products. All right, I see about 50% votes come in, so let's publish the results. Okay, I believe you can now see the results, and there's a top 3. So providing a living wage to farmers and workers. All right, would be very interested to learn more about how you calculate a living wage, because from the European market there is a certain idea about how to calculate a living wage, but that's maybe for some other time. The second one is making your business inclusive for women, and can't see the rest of the sentence. I think other minorities. All right, nice. And third is providing a healthy workplace at your premises, so for your employees. And then followed at a distance the contracts. There's still almost 50% has those contracts in place. Okay, I think there's room for for improvement there. And only 20% say that they are using the supplier ethical data exchange. Okay, let's later hear from Lastiana about her experience with that, and hear if that could be a recommendation for you. All right, then going back to my screen. Okay. Here I would like to invite Lastiana to also show your video. Hi. Lastiana,
Hi.
founder of company Elliott Green in Indonesia. You have participated in the CBI program in the past, right? Very successfully, because you're now well, very successful business from what I've seen, and I hope you will tell us a bit more about that. I have a few questions for you that relates to the two topics that we have been discussing. And I believe you also have some slides to show.
I will make you the presenter now, Lastiana.
Okay.
So now you can show your presentation.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, put it in presentation mode, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So to give a bit of context, can you briefly introduce your company?
Okay. Thank you, Casper, for a very well introduction. I feel flattered by now. Hello, everyone. It's good to see you here. So I'm Lastiana Yuliandari. I'm the founder and the director of Elliott Green, championing more small family farms and female and disabled agroforestry farmers. Elliott Green's mission is to help improve the well-being of all our indigenous communities. And Casper was right, because Casper was my mentor. So Elliott Green was part of the CBI export coaching program to export to the EU countries in 2013. So it's 10 years ago. So as you can see, yeah. So we are
Great.
also a woman-owned business, yeah.
First woman-led social enterprise bring regenerative organic coconut sugar and vanilla beans to the world market. All right, and so I've taken a look at your website also to get a better understanding of where you are now. And there you're saying that you're working side by side with your farmers to, as you put it, empower them with resilient, regenerative organic farming practices to then help them tackle the effects of climate change. And can you explain a bit more how you do this, and especially how you motivate farmers to work on this?
Well, we introduced and were first certified in regenerative organic agriculture in 2020, but we have been certified organic since 2009. So it's like regenerative organic agriculture here means like the process of restoring degraded soils, using like practices based on ecological principles, and it requires managing a farm by considering the interaction among the soil, water, plants, animals, and humans. So they are all interconnected pieces of the whole system. And we set out to champion over 1,500 small family farms. 90% of them are female farmers, and 1% of our farmers are disabled farmers working in agroforestry farm, and improve also the indigenous communities' well-being. This is also helping them to tackle the climate change. Probably for those who are wondering about the meaning of agroforestry, a little bit of information about agroforestry is that it's like a system intentionally planting trees, cash crops, and food together in a food forest system. So agroforestry tends to bring more positive effects on the environment. And besides the positive effects that agroforestry can bring for the nature, also bring chances for small family farms. And then they are not dependent on just one species, for instance, not only depending on one crop. So, and unfortunately, the norm nowadays is that the big monoculture plantations and monoculture system often come with the chemicals and devastating effects on the environment.
Is it really important for your farmers to have this diversity of crops?
Yes, because they can have a different income from different crops. So, and then they are also motivated because while planting trees in agroforestry system, they can also meet with the needs of the communities and while also protecting the climate. And then because each crop can help each other while growing, because one crop needs more nitrogen, one crop needs other organic compounds, so they are kind of like complete each other. So that is not happening in the monoculture system.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So the diversification is a measure to basically address climate change in the end, but also a measure to reduce risks, economic risks for your farmers.
Yes, correct. So one crop cannot grow, or you cannot eat one crop, you still have another crop to feed the family. So that's part of the economic sustainability.
All right, thanks. Then I would also like to talk a bit about SEDEX. Also referring to the poll we just had, with only 20% of the audience using SEDEX. You are a member of SEDEX. So I'd like to hear from you. Yeah, why did you become a member, and how are you using it to achieve your objectives?
Well, it's actually kind of like a compromise action to be a member of SEDEX with our customers, as we are having a fair trade certification called Fair for Life. We are certified regenerative organic certification, and we are currently acquiring B Corp certification. So these certifications are somehow similar to each other. And it's sometimes, to be honest, it's sometimes hard for us as well to manage the same purpose of certification at the same time. And we think about what major clients or customers would like to have. So when they think that being a SEDEX member is sufficient, we don't have to go for SMETA audit, for example. And then because similar, and it all depends on the majority of your client's standards and requirements.
All right, but you are with certain buyers, you are sharing information on your sustainability measures through SEDEX.
Yes, of course. So we share like our impact reports, and then we share our sustainability report as well with our customers. And impact report must be available on the website, so people can also see, potential clients can also see as well what we have been doing or what we did in the past. So then they know that we are basically doing everything possible to make everything happen for the environmental positive effects and social benefits as well.
All right. This aspect of reporting, it's also on which I had another question for you, because it's one thing to work on sustainability, implement it. It's another thing to report it, report on it to buyers. Do you only do this through SEDEX, or do you also have other means to share information on your impact to buyers?
We share that through our website. For example, the use of our Fair Trade Premium Fund. We are really transparent in that. And then also the impact reports. We interview the suppliers. We also interview the clients, and then so then we can make a proper data analysis. So we are not just making up a story to make people interested in buying from Allied Green. But we have to provide the data. Like you can do that through baseline survey. The most important thing is that when you provide the data, you have to ensure that you have to put the numbers. You cannot just say or claim that you are fair trade, but yeah, how many beneficiaries you have helped. So, and then beneficiaries in this case is the producers you are working with. So, and then you have to be really transparent, and as I agree with you, with your presentation, you have to be traceable as well in many cases.
Yeah. Is it a lot of work? to
I know.
collect data also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for this information. I'm also looking at the time, so I'd like to have one more poll, if possible, with the help of CBI, and that relates to the management processes of a sustainable business. There's four aspects to it. I'd like to hear from you which of these aspects you already have in place. So you normally start with setting targets with buyers and suppliers for sustainability. Or like, what are the risks? What are the problems? What are the issues? And for setting a target, you can make it measurable, what you're going to achieve. The second step would be to design, implement measures to achieve targets. The third step is then to collect data for monitoring and evaluation to see if your measures are effective. And then obviously the last step is to report on your progress towards buyers. There is a sequence to this. So it's interesting to see in the results coming in that let's say many are designing and implementing measures, but not necessarily setting targets, or not in a how is that, in a way that it's part of a proper management system. Of course, if you're implementing measures, then you have maybe a target in mind, but it's maybe not documented and not agreed with suppliers or buyers. All right, we have about 40% of votes. Okay, I think so. Looking at the time to close the poll, and yeah, so the result, 60% is implementing measures for having a sustainable impact, and that's a bit more than people setting targets. And that's probably because, yeah, you have targets, but it's not, the way of setting targets is maybe not done very structurally, right? And yeah, a lot of companies also systematically collect data, 50% of the audience here, and yeah, only 1/3 reports regularly towards buyers. And I think that's where there will be higher expectations from the European market, but it's also where you have a lot to gain, because by reporting, you make it visible to buyers, and that's basically what matters to buyers. That they can be certain that that you're taking measures, and that they can, yeah, see what effect it has, what impact you're in the end making. So room for improvement there. Then that was the last poll, and also the end of my presentation. Of course, there is still room for Q&A, and hopefully, Thomas, you can still pick out some questions that you believe
Yes,
are relevant.
I will. Yeah, we have we're out of time, but we have some questions left which we will answer. And the first question is for Lastiana. And somebody, Carlito, was asking how big the land area is of a light green.
Yeah, so currently we are managing around 700 hectare agroforestry area.
Okay, seems like a big area.
Yeah,
so
when I do that alone, yes.
But you have a lot of help and farmers. So a second question is, yes, it's this. If you have a food safety system, for example, certain. I think this is for Casper, but for example, certified ETA high level, such as BRC and FSSC 22,000, you know that. There's a traceability in place. Is that sufficient to guarantee the traceability you need to show for upcoming legislation such as CSDDD?
The due diligence legislation.
Yes.
Well, when you have such a food safety management system in place, certified, you should have an excellent traceability system in place. Only the purpose of that traceability system is for food safety, to guarantee food safety and to trace products back when there is a food safety issue. With sustainability requirements, so it's not about food safety issues, it's about other issues. Think of, like, let's say forced labor. If that's a concern in your supply chain, maybe from a buyer, then they will want information on the use of labor and how it's organized in your supply chain. And so you can use your traceability system as a basis, but you will have to collect different type of information and transfer that information through your value chain to the buyer. So in terms of, let's say, the technical aspect of traceability, yes, that's fine. But the type of information that you need to transfer through the supply chain is different.
Okay, thank you. Another question. How will a small medium enterprise entity be able to impact on the use of fossil fuel? Going that route will impact the cost of production. Do you have any tips?
Well, I included in the studies that are going to be published in 4 to 6 weeks also this example of essential oil producers that need to have like a boiler to produce steam, right? And now you can fuel that that boiler with fossil fuels, but you could also have an electric boiler, and then obviously if you would have like solar panels also on your roofs or in your premises to generate electricity and then feed that to the boiler, yeah, you can really take out the fossil fuel use. And so it depends obviously on what you're doing and yeah, how you can change your processing methods, but also your transportation system. To what extent you can reduce fossil fuel use. But in Europe, we are seeing a lot of innovation taking place to make it possible for companies to reduce their dependence on fossil fuels. with recently in the Netherlands, our biggest polluter is a steel company using enormous amounts of fossil fuels for steel production, and they're now on their way, they say, to use hydrogen in the future, which is a clean energy and produced also with solar energy. So people are finding ways, innovating to reduce fossil fuels, and you just have to see what can work for you.
Okay, thank you. I think yeah, it's also about the cost of production and can we commercialize that with being sustainable. So I think there's another question here that's about that as well. It says, I'm curious to know to what extent do SMEs have an assurance that implementing some or all of these measures will translate into commercial benefits, especially if the demand is driven by the importing companies. I think it's an important question is if you invest in sustainability, can you commercialize it? And
Yeah.
what's the power of the importing companies in that?
Yeah. So sustainability is not something completely new, of course. That it's now turned into legislation. That's kind of a new development. But we see that in the past, European companies that worked on sustainability in their supply chains, they used it to differentiate themselves and position themselves as, you know, very socially and environmentally responsible companies, and were able to translate that to higher prices, all right, because they had just like exclusive products. We see a development that sustainability is becoming a license to operate. So in the future, you will have to show, let's say, responsible business behavior to do business in Europe. And yeah, I do see your point that Europe is asking for quite a lot, and that requires from you to take measures and do administration, and you would obviously like to see then a higher price for it. And I see some companies in Europe can do that. They can ask higher prices. But indeed, it's not always the case, and that's of course where it kind of hurts. That it's really a burden, and to translate it to higher prices is quite hard, but not not impossible. And I also believe that for several of the measures, especially with regards to fossil fuels, in Europe, generating your own electricity with solar panels is like a financially interesting measure to take, right? Because you make an investment, but in the long run, you get a good return on the investment financially, because you don't have to buy the fossil fuels anymore. But also by getting better access to buyers that appreciate what you're doing there.
Yes,
So
thank
challenge,
you.
yes.
Thank you. That seems like a good way to close this. And I want to, because we're already past time, I want to thank all the participants, all the listeners for joining this presentation. And I hope it will benefit your business and your view on being a sustainable producer. And I also want to many thanks for Lastiana for joining us today with an interesting story about her company. And thank you, Casper, of course, for this presentation. To all listeners, this presentation will be shared with you if you are registered. And also the recording of this presentation will be on our YouTube channel. You'll be informed about it by email. So thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.